Hi friends, welcome back to Rouse Rising. My name is Katie and on this channel I share with you all about holistic homemaking. Right now we are in the season of food preservation. It is summer's end and we are taking part of the Every Bit Counts challenge that Three Rivers Homestead is hosting. Jessica over there has been preserving food a little bit at a time every single day, and while I haven't preserved something every single day, I have done my best to preserve what I can when I have access to it. So I've had access to some delicious fresh produce at this time. I'm foraging, I'm going to the farmers markets, I'm utilizing the produce that I can find locally on the public lands, and all of this has helped me stock the shelves behind me with delicious food so that when we are in the cold winter months, we can have some delicious summer flavors with our food. So come along and check out all the food that I have been able to preserve as part of the Every Bit Counts challenge, and you can do this too. In this video, we are water bath canning, we are pressure canning, we're freezing, we're also freeze drying. If you need a freeze dryer, check down below in this video's description. I've got the best deal on a freeze dryer for you. I have a Stay Fresh freeze dryer and it has served me really well. Look at all this beautiful food up here that I have freeze dried. As well, I have buckets and buckets of food in my garage with freeze dried goodness. You can freeze dry your broth, your soups, your stews, your vegetables, your eggs, your yogurt, your produce, you name it, you can freeze dry it, and the food lasts so much longer when it's freeze dried. It's definitely one of the better ways to preserve food, but if you don't have a freeze dryer, don't fret, don't worry. You can preserve food other ways. There's also dehydrating, which is one thing I'm not doing in today's video. So I hope you enjoy it. Give this video a thumbs up, share with your friends if you wanna, and come along, let's dive into it. I had an abundance of celery that I got from a produce haul. Locally, we've got I'm not sure, I can't remember what it's called, but it's where they come to your community and they give away free produce. So I believe it's a part of the food bank. Pretty much anybody can go and collect. For instance, I don't have food stamps. We don't qualify for food stamps or anything like that, but we're able to go and utilize the produce stands and get free produce while it's available at those. So I was able to score a whole bunch of celery. So we are going to freeze dry the celery. I also had some onions that were going bad. So I did what I could to salvage the onions, and we went ahead and freeze dried those up too. When all is said and done, it'll say freeze drying complete, and you will want to warm the tray so that your trays acclimate to room temperature, so that when you take out your cold trays, they're not condensating and causing moisture on your food. So we're gonna let the tray warm for just a little bit, and then we're going to exit once it's done warming, and you can actually stop and check it. So what I would do is I would open the valve, and let's hit no. We're warming the tray. So we would open the valve and allow the air to release, and then we would open the store, check everything, and then if we needed to return to final dry, we would do that. But I'm just gonna warm the tray and then check it and determine from there. I'm pretty sure everything is dry. I have done celery before, you know, it is a pretty quick process. All right here I'm gonna release my valve. Oops, the shelf is now at 13. It was at negative, and then it's going up to 14. You see it's just warming right up. We can go ahead and check them now. And you can see that these are completely dry. Completely dry onions. Perfect, beautiful freeze-dried onions. You can see it's already starting to condensate or freeze on there, and we don't want that to happen. And then the celery is dry. There you go. So we're just gonna let those warm for a little bit. We're at 22 degrees for the shelf right now. Let's just take a moment to notice that my thumb was not bandaged in this portion of the video. I did a whole bunch of food preservation throughout the month of August. In the beginning of the month of August, my body was intact. Towards the middle of the month, I managed to land myself in the ER with stitches in my thumb. So you're gonna see a bandage and gloves in the works. You might have this in your state or local to you, but we have what's called a produce connection. And we have it deliver produce to our little community once a week through, it's like the summer months. I think partway through September. Anyways, I got a whole box of plums. Some of them are overripe, some of them are nearly rotten, but we're gonna turn a majority of this into plum jam, and then the rest the kids are gonna eat. So we have that, and then we also got a bunch of baby bok choy and carrots. So that was produce connection. Then went to my neighbor down the road and got 5 dozen of her eggs. And they are beautiful. In one of my next videos, I'm going to be making chicken pozole verde, and it is a delicious Mexican style soup that I made plenty of, and I canned up the extra so that I can have fast food on the shelf for another night. Right now you can see I am checking the lids to make sure they are all sealed on all of these jars, and I do that by lifting the jar by the lid to make sure it is stuck on there very well. I also remove the rings, that way the seals aren't compromised, and you do not want to store your jars with the rings screwed down, because then that might give you a false seal, which means that your food would then be dangerous to eat. So you want to be careful, make sure you're following all the proper and safe canning practices when you can food, but don't be daunted by those safe practices. Canning is actually really easy to do, and it is a great way to make fast food. It's a great way to put food on the shelf for another day. It is a great way to use up your scraps. So if you make like a large vegetable broth with all of your scrap vegetables from all of your cooking throughout the month that you saved in a Ziploc bag in your freezer, that is a way that you can use up all of those scraps and make a delicious broth, and then can it so that you can have a shelf-stable food. If the power goes out or whatever happens, you've got some food that you can eat right off the shelf. It's already cooked, it's already prepared. Of course, it's better if it's heated. However, you can eat this food straight out of the can. So I'm really excited to have this soup. You're gonna see me making it a lot in my meal prep videos because it is my new favorite. It is now a family favorite. Also, you want to be sure to write the contents of your jar and the date on the jar. The last thing you want is to get 2 years down the road and you cannot remember what or when you canned whatever the contents, the mystery contents of your jar. So make sure you label so that you know exactly what's in there a year or two down the road. Also, so that you can be rotating through your food efficiently. You need to make sure that all of your soups and all of your broths, all of your canned goods are on a rotation, and that you are using up your foods within a year or at the latest 2 years. I know that some people can go longer than that, but I try to stick to, I know I have some things on the shelf right now that need to be eaten up in the next few months. So that's why I am writing the contents on these jars. I actually went through my whole shelf of canned goods recently, and I did find a jar that I failed to label, and I could not remember what year because the last 4 years have been a blur. So get yourself a Sharpie, keep it in your kitchen. All right, so from that chicken carcass that we used to make the chicken pozole, we have these 4 quarts of chicken carcass broth. So this is just chicken broth. It's delicious. And now it's gonna be dated and put on my pantry shelf so that we can have chicken broth. I'll go through this pretty quickly, but I rotate it. So these will go on the shelf, and then I'll pull an older dated chicken broth to use in my cooking now. So these will just sit on the shelf, and then I have a constant rotation of broth. Sometimes I will save some, like if I needed to make rice or whatever, I save a quart and I make my rice, and then whatever I have left I will can. But this time I got 4 quarts out of the batch, and so I drank the rest of it last night because I was able to mash these bones up with a potato masher and strain the broth through all that. I got all of this delicious nutrition. You can see it on the bottom of this, all of that is like the bone marrow and mashed up bone meal or whatever. So you're getting the calcium and all the nutrients from the bones. But the bones, once I mash them up, you know, I strain through a fine mesh strainer. You don't actually get like crunchy bones or anything like that. Everything is really soft, so you don't even know. And you're getting all that extra nutrition from your chicken carcass. Okay, we've got this huge Instant Pot full of plums. What's this, about 10 cups of plums in there. We're gonna add 5 cups of sugar. I'm gonna pressure cook this, and I'm gonna link right here the plum recipe that I'm using. But we scored a box of plums from the produce stand here locally, and some of them were overripe or parts of them were rotten, so we're gonna make the plum preserve that I made a couple weeks ago, and we've been eating that on pancakes. The kids love it, so we're just gonna continue to do that. And then the rest of these the kids are gonna eat, and what they don't eat I might can in some simple syrup, some of them. What I've done here is remove the pits of the plums or the plum seeds, and I have cut them up, and I have about 10 cups of plums here, and I'm adding 5 cups of cane sugar to this. We are going to put this in the Instant Pot cooker and allow it to slow cook for a couple hours while I go into town. It is going to all kind of marry together, and I'm going to use an immersion blender to get it into a plum sauce. Then I'm going to warm up some jars in the oven at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. This serves 2 purposes. It sterilizes the jars and it heats them up so that they don't shatter when you place the hot sauce into the jars. I'm gonna do what's called a hot pack, except for it's not really a pack, it's a hot pour of the hot plum sauce into the jars. I'm just gonna ladle it in there, and I'm gonna leave about 1/4 to 1/2 inch headspace at the top, and then I'm going to put on my lids that are preheated in that bowl of water right there. That is some hot water that I added to the bowl with the lid, so the silicone ring around the lid can soften up and mold to the jar rim easier. And then once we put the lids and the rings on, I'm going to take this over to my water bath canner, add them to the canner, make sure that there is at least 1 to 2 inches of water covering the jars, and we will process the pint jars in boiling water for 25 minutes. Once that is done, we take them out of the water bath and we place them on a towel where they can cool for 24 hours. Then we're going to remove the rings, label and date our jars, wash them, and put them on the shelf, being sure that we eat them in the next 1 to 2 years. There are many ways that you can use your plum sauce. We like it as a topping on ice cream, oatmeal, pancakes, waffles. We mix it in with our yogurt. You can also use it and add it to your sparkling water drinks. There's just so many ways that you can use your plum sauce. It is delicious. Sometimes if you cook it down enough, it will turn into plum jam, but I wanted something that we could pour out of the jar to top things, and to mix it in to the oatmeal and to mix it into yogurt easily. So that's why I've stuck with the plum sauce. But once again, this is a no pectin recipe, and I share the no pectin plum jam recipe on my channel, but I'm turning this one into a sauce. So you would just allow it to cook down and reduce a good bit further until it coats the back of your spoon with a thick coating of jam, and then you would continue the process. This isn't quite as thick as that, but it is doable. So check that recipe out on my channel. was sure to do some little half pints of jam sauce, or of plum sauce, I'm sorry, so that I could gift those away to friends throughout the holiday season. I chopped up all the bok choy. I separated the white stems from the green leafy parts and put them on separate trays. And then now I am fine shredding up some zucchini so that we can use this throughout the winter in some of our baked goods. You can also use your fine shredded zucchini in quiches or any kind of recipe that you want to. So I'm going to load the trays up with this, and then we're going to head out to the garage. I'm going to show you the process for setting up the freeze dryer. There are two ways you can do this. You can load the food in raw and the freeze dryer will freeze it for you. This adds additional time. Or you can pre-freeze the trays in your freezer and then put them in the freeze dryer and start the freeze drying process, which to me is a much quicker process. However, on this day, I am going to put all of my raw ingredients into the freeze dryer, and it's going to freeze them in the chamber and then freeze dry them for me. I went back to that box of plums and decided my family wasn't going to be able to eat them all before they went bad, so I am going to slice them. I am parboiling them in some juice. This is cranberry juice, and then I'm loading them up into the jars. This is a hot pack method, and this keeps the shape of the plums a little better, the texture a little bit better when you hot pack these. You just let them sit in the boiling water for about a minute or two. They say 2 minutes, so there you go, 2 minutes, and then put them hot into your hot jar fresh from the oven at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we're going to pack the fruit in there and ladle in some hot juice on top, and we're going to leave about a ½ inch room at the top headspace, and we're going to put on our warmed lids with our ring. For processing times, definitely refer to the USDA canning guidelines, because it all depends on your elevation and the method of canning that you are using. So be sure to follow those guidelines for your processing time. All right, you want to make sure to wipe your rims clean before you place the lids and before you place the rings. Then your hot jars are going into your hot water, where they are going to bathe in there for a while. Depending on your altitude, it could be 20 minutes. Depending on the side of your jar, it could be 25 or 30 minutes. So check those guidelines out. We are going to be using these sliced plums and juice for our crisp crumble bake. So we got a recipe from Lenny Corser that I've shared with you, and I am sharing again in an upcoming food prep video. But you can use your plums for that, or for toppings on ice cream, all sorts of delicious ways to use your canned goods. Next, we are going to wash all of our jars with hot soapy water before we store them on the shelf for the long term. Well, I've got a little bit of time to myself, so I think I'll just show you the view of where I'm at. It's beautiful. One of the ways that we find food is to forage in the Pacific Northwest. So that is what today's trip entails, is finding an elderberry bush so that we can harvest some elderberries this season and have them throughout the winter. We also came across some choke cherries, so I picked a whole bunch of these choke cherries, and these make a really good jelly that I've made before. I don't know, y'all. Not sure where to get any elderberries. Oh, it's the mother lode, it's the mother lode. I found the mother lode. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous elderberry bush. And you want to pick the elderberries when the stems are purple and when all the berries are super dark purple. If you buff these berries, you will see they're dark purple underneath. You do not want to pick them when they're any ripe berries. You want to make sure the whole cluster is purple. And so in the Pacific Northwest, our elderberries get a bloom on them, much like grapes. You see I got my collar up because the mosquitoes are fierce out here. So these get a bloom on them, and I just rinse them in hot water. I freeze them first to kill all the bugs, and then I rinse them in a colander in hot water. That removes the bloom while they're frozen. Of course, they start to thaw, but then I put them immediately on freeze dryer trays, and I freeze dry these. So I'll pop them in the freezer and then I'll put them in the freeze dryer because that saves time freeze drying them. So that's what I'm doing right now. I am rucksacking, filling up my rucksack. I have a trash bag inside my rucksack, and then I brought 2 shopping bags, and I'm gonna see how many elderberries we get. Let's see how many pounds I can carry back to the car. It's pretty exciting, super excited. This really lessens how much driving around and everything I have to do when I find a bush like this. So I actually harvested from this bush last year, and it is way more prolific this year. It did not hurt it that I harvested from it last year and the year before maybe, I'm not sure. But this year it's way overproduced. It's amazing. You may be asking yourself, Katie, what are you going to do with 20 pounds of elderberries right now? Well, I'm going to take them home and I'm going to throw the whole bag of elderberries into my deep freezer so that all the bugs die. And then once all the bugs die, I shake the bag, the bugs fall to the bottom. And once the clusters are frozen, I take them out and I get them off of the stems and I wash them in hot water and vinegar. If you want to know more, check out my medicinal remedies playlist on YouTube because I have everything you need to know about elderberries. It's amazing. And when we think about leaving Oregon and leave this, I don't know. All right, it says freeze drying complete. So I am going to warm my trays, and that's just going to make sure that when I pull these out, there's not condensation that builds up on them and causes the food to have moisture. So we're going to warm the tray, and then you're going to see that the shelf temperature is currently warm. So what we're going to do is release the air. Let's check. These trays are already warmed. Yep, everything looks dry. So we're just gonna stack them up and get them inside and get them packaged up. This one is warm. Once you exit freeze drying, it's gonna say set defrost time and temperature. You're gonna hit start and it's gonna melt all the ice that's in there. And then once you do that, you are going to open this valve and then all the water is gonna pour into your bucket. Next up, we're gonna put all of the shredded zucchini and all of the bok choy into glass jars, and we are going to vacuum seal these. It is called dry canning. So we are gonna be dry canning these in vacuum sealed jars, and this is gonna help preserve them for a much longer time. Be sure to label your contents in the jar and write the date on your jar when you store these for long term. I'm also going to be using oxygen absorbers inside of these just in case there's a seal leak on the lid. The oxygen absorbers will counteract that until I notice it, because I do periodically check my foods, so I will catch it in time and I will be able to reseal the jar. I will link all of the items to dry can your food down in this video's description so that you can shop easily for these products just in case you want to start doing something like this. So you can dry can rice and beans, any foods that are dry except for sugar. You don't want to dry can sugar because it will turn into a rock inside of your jar. But I will also post down in this video's description my video all about dry canning your food. I appreciate you hanging out with me in today's video. We had a lot of fun preserving all of this food, and I'm gonna keep this trend going next month. We're gonna keep stocking the shelves because you know they're calling for another pandemic. You know they're calling for more lockdowns. It's about to get crazy. So we're making sure that we have enough food in this house to get us by for a few weeks, a few months, half a year if need be, and you should too. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.